Hey fam, I hope you're doing fine. Joanne here. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Joanne's Students Podcast. It's an honor, it's a pleasure that you take the time to listen in. Uh, I've been thinking about time a lot lately, uh, and how it actually does fly by so fast. I've been thinking about the time we're in lockdown. I think about 3 years ago, we all know the pandemic happened and we were forced to stay at home for about 2 years, depending on which country you're in. And while I've been on this journey of my podcast and blogs and vlogs and everything I've been up to, I've been thinking a lot about the time because you have work happening, responsibilities, you need it here, you need it there, and it's so hard to keep up. You can barely get the time to sit down and focus or write down a blog or publish an episode of a podcast. Like, you realize there is so much happening in there and you barely have time to keep up. And it constantly kept haunting me to think about how much time I had the 2 years that we were sitting at home. It was the only time, I think it's gonna be the only time in our lifetime where we are not gonna be held accountable for anything. Like, your boss didn't expect you to be anywhere because you are in lockdown. That was like the best time to make up an excuse, like, I can't do this because I don't have access to this. But to think that that time went by, and most of us, I am very guilty because I am one of those people who didn't do anything productive throughout that time. I spent most of the time watching movies. I don't know. I spent a lot of time doing absolutely nothing. Wake up, eat, watch TV, and go back. And to think that a lot of people did come up with a lot of innovative ideas that time to thrive makes me feel so bad about myself. And to think that it did fly by so fast because it was only yesterday that we were stuck at home. And I mean, look at us now. It feels like it was yesterday, yet it wasn't. Times were different. The things we knew at that time are not the same things we know today. I remember the time COVID hit, I was just a random girl who was waiting for graduation and with absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life, hoping that, I don't know, things would just unfold. And like, I had zero worries of the world. I was a totally different person from who I am today. So it had me thinking, if with everything I know right now, would I have done life differently if I knew those things back then? So I decided to speak to a few friends from around here to see what they think. Some of their responses are surprising. Let's just listen to what they had to say. With the knowledge you have today about life, if you had the same knowledge from 5 years ago, do you think you'd do life differently?
No, I wouldn't. I
Seriously?
wouldn't do anything different.
With maybe, don't you think there are some things you've learned over the years that you didn't know? Let's say, like, when you were 25 and probably now you're like 28, do you think there are better decisions you would have made with the knowledge you've picked from back then?
All the mistakes I made me a better person. So I can't just change everything because then I wouldn't have made the mistakes. I wouldn't have seen the things I've seen or done the things I've done. So the future is that if you get to the future and then do the same mistakes that you've done 5 years ago.
Makes sense. I've been thinking about the COVID time. Do you think that throughout COVID, because I feel like that was a lot of time that went by unaccounted for. We didn't have like jobs. The country was under lockdown. You didn't have to like go to school or anything. Do you feel like you used that time to the best of your ability?
I did nothing.
But you realize people did start like businesses and stuff like that.
Actually, people did businesses, people started marriages, people started so many things, but I did nothing because it was something new. And there was totally nothing that COVID brought something new, so I was in the blink. I didn't know anything, so I stood by until COVID left.
So do you think you could have done better?
Yes, I could have. Now that I think about it, I could have done much better because then I get to know people who went through it and improvised with whatever they had and even made more money than they could have done even before COVID. Hmm.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, so let's talk about the time you were in COVID. What was the experience like for COVID? Because in my experience, I feel like there was a lot of time that went by, and I keep thinking if because that I feel like that was like once in a lifetime opportunity to have that much space. So, do you think you spent that COVID time to the best of its? Like, do you think you did the best that you could at that time, or you feel like you could have done better throughout the 1 2 years of lockdown?
I can't say that I used that time of COVID at the best of interest. No, I didn't. Yeah, because I don't think I achieved anything from that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the time. That's one of the times that I should have been present.
When you really think about it, yeah, it's funny because even as we speak today, time is flying. And I think one of my biggest fears as a person is to wake up the next 6 months or the next 1 year when I am in the same place I was a year ago. Last year around this time, I was contemplating between launching my first episode of my podcast or I don't know, hiding. I remember I was in a back and forth situation with my mentor. Every meeting would meet would ask me about the episode, and I was so scared. Like I was processing my fear, my timidness, my anxiety about putting my voice out here for the first time. And I mean, finally, I still did. But looking back, it's 10 episodes in. It's gonna be a 11th one, and of course, they aren't like the most perfect, but I am proud of the progress. Of course, it's not like my best because if it's gonna be 12 months and I would only have 10, 11 episodes, then of course I need to pull my socks up. But to think that I still showed up anyway. Okay, I'm not like this is not me trying to blow my trumpet, but my point is make sure you're not the same person you were 6 months ago or a year ago. Time does fly by so fast. I've been really reflecting a lot about time, the things that I've constantly been repetitive in my life with my friends, with my job, with my I don't know, career. The things I invest my time in, like I feel like I'm at that point where I'm so reflective and intentional about the things that do take my time. I'd rather sleep. I'd rather stay in bed and sleep off than spend my time in things I really don't think I value or don't bring anything or add anything to who I am and who I intend to be in the future. So my point here, my message to you here is time does fly by. I'm sure you knew that, but another thing about time is what the more often you do something repetitively, if you're constantly going to the gym all the time, spending your time, let's say every day you do morning and evening or 2 hours every day, it's gonna become a part of your routine and then it becomes a habit. And that's you spending your time repetitively embracing a habit that's of course of value addition, you're building your body and looks good. Or if you're not doing that, you're constantly spending it around something that's not gonna yield off. And my oh my, time does fly by so fast. You will wake up in the next 6 months or 2 years later and you're like, oh my god, I wasted my 20s doing absolutely nothing. So, whatever you're doing today, I want you to sit back and reflect and ask yourself, is this where I want to spend my time? That there is a saying that goes, time is money, yeah. As much as it sounds cliche, but in the long run, where you're spending your time has to yield of something one way or the other, not monetarily or physically. It has to add up something to you. So if it's not, please just go and sleep. Your body will be glad that you're using your time to rest than spending it in some place that's either toxic or not value additional, because the more time you spend there, it becomes a habit. You start embracing it. Before you know it, 2 years, 3 years in, and it's now a part of you, and you're constantly spending your time doing something that's of less value to you. So if you're sitting around hoping that you still have time, as much as they say, yeah, don't take your time, that's different. Taking your time is you being patient with your process. That means you're spending time in the right places and you're patient. You do not have time. If you're spending time in the wrong places, you are wasting your time. You're not productively using your time. You don't want to be the person who sees someone successful on TV and then say, oh, I went to the same school with that person. Oh, we shared a table in school, or we attended the mentorship program together. You do not want to be the person who looks at your friends and you get the jealous vibe. Or in my experience, I feel like I had a terrible usage of my time during lockdown, and that was the most time I think I'm gonna have as an adult, where everything is just so nobody cares. No one is gonna call you out. People had to do a bachelor's for 4 years, and it was okay because it was COVID. I mean, no one would question you. Did you have retakes, or like it was okay to get away with so many things in that time. But now they will be asking you, how comes you're this age or you're at this point of your life and you don't have this? And you will have no excuse, because we all had the same 24 hours in a day. And if you're privileged enough to have the resources as most people have, then you do not have an excuse. My prayer is that at the end of this episode, you sit down and reflect and ask yourself, is the time that I am spending with this person, or at this job, or at this game or sport, or in this area, or with so and so, or with anything you constantly spending your time, or is it worth it? Is it productive? Is it going to yield of something? You want to be very intentional with how you spend your time. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for taking the time to listen in. Bye.